Warning, the following episode of the Blackwell Podcast contains spoilers from all episodes of Life is Strange.
Hi, and welcome to the Blackwell Podcast, where we love Life is Strange more than Joyce loves working at the Two Whale Diners. I'm Joey. I'm here, as always, with Jamie and Jess.
Hey.
Hey.
And we have a very special guest. We have Cissy Jones. Hi, Cissy.
What's up? Hi, guys. How's it going?
Pretty good.
Good.
So, I think most everyone knows who you are, but for those of you who may not, could you introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure. I'm Cissy Jones. I'm a voice actor. I've done a lot of work in video games in the last couple of years. I started out in The Walking Dead, the game from Telltale, which was my first job, believe it or not. And from there, did a bunch of random stuff and then ended up in Life is Strange as Joyce Price and you may not know, the homeless lady.
So our first question for you today is, what got you into voiceover work?
Yeah, so I used to work an office job in high tech in the Silicon Valley, and it was one of those situations like, have you guys ever seen Fight Club?
Yeah.
Yes.
So it was kind of like the beginning of Fight Club, where Ed Norton was like, I am Jack's failing liver. And I was not happy. And I remember one particular morning, I woke up, my alarm clock went off, and the first thought that went through my head was, and I was getting ready for work, and I heard Nancy Cartwright, who's the voice of Bart Simpson, on the radio promoting the Simpsons movie, but she was talking about how awesome voiceover was, and it was just the greatest job in the world. And she said, you guys here in San Francisco, where I lived at the time, you guys are so lucky you have one of the best voiceover schools in the country right here. And I was on the phone that day. I started taking classes that week. 2 years later, I quit my job, and my husband and I moved to Los Angeles, and here we are.
Wow, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
At least she didn't, develop a split personality and start a fight
Or
club.
did I?
We don't talk about
Yeah,
it.
no. I don't want to talk about it, guys. No, it was good. And, I think what's important for me, at least, to tell people is that at that time in my life, I was 30 already. So it's not like I was, 22 and making this huge career change. Like, I was kind of down the path and decided things weren't what I wanted them to be. And so it was a big change a little bit later in my life. And it's been a great change for me.
Awesome.
And that's paid off, too, because you've been really prolific. You just recently had a role as Delilah in Firewatch.
Yeah. Oh, Delilah. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, it's worked out really well. I'm incredibly grateful for everything.
Wow. Well, our next question is, if you could voice any character other than Joyce, who would it be and why?
In Life is Strange?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think because it's mostly, most of the rest of the characters are a lot younger. My voice doesn't really lend itself to that. I think someone like Max or like Chloe are so interesting, but I don't think I would believably pull it off. So I think I'm perfectly suited for Joyce and Homeless Lady.
Great answer.
Alrighty. So moving on. So are there any other roles that you've played that are kind of similar to Joyce in any other way?
Yeah, actually, Katya was from The Walking Dead was very similar to Joyce in that, she was a really caring mother. She had one child that she would do anything for, and she was married to a total hothead. This guy with just a wicked temper and, kind of always not necessarily apologizing for him, but trying to keep the peace between him and everybody around him. I felt like Katya was very similar to Joyce in that respect.
Okay.
That's so that's for anyone who hasn't played. The Walking Dead game season 1. It's Katya from that, and you should go play it.
And she was married to Kenny, who is like, he'll either be your best friend or the biggest a-hole on the planet.
Wow.
Kind of like David, in a way. So, a big question is, what would your breakfast food of choice be? Would it be waffles, an omelet, eggs and bacon, pancakes?
That's a tough one, guys, because usually I'll order like a savory and a sweet. So, I don't know. I might have to go with an omelet and like a side of a half a waffle. Because at least in the omelet, I could have the eggs and put bacon inside it. See?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So
Thinking
all
outside the
together,
box.
Yeah.
Just maximizing. I'm maximizing my gross breakfast intake.
Was there a challenge portraying the version of Joyce in the alternate timeline for Life is Strange?
And that was the one where Chloe was in a wheelchair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
I think the hardest part about that is I am a mom myself and I have 2 daughters, and putting myself in a position of a character who has a daughter that's in a situation like that is, it takes you to some really dark places. And, all you can do is hope that you do your best and your kids come out relatively unscathed with minimal amount of therapy. So I think that's the hardest part for me is anytime you do a role in a scene, situations like that, you have to put yourself in the character's shoes or it's not believable. So to put myself in those shoes, it gets really emotional.
I can imagine, yeah.
Mm.
It's kind of a perfect segue into our next question. So, did voicing Joyce, mother to the troubled Chloe, teach you anything for your own life or in your career?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, I've got 2 daughters and, they're both under 5 right now, so they do whatever I tell them to. But, when they're teenagers, I'm sure there will be moments where I'm pulling my hair out, amongst other things. And I think the thing that I love about Joyce the most is that as crazy as Chloe got and as much as she rebelled, Joyce always loved her unconditionally, which mothers are wont to do. But Joyce had a warmth to her that I want to carry with me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I don't think you'll have a problem carrying that over, that warmth.
Yeah.
Well, thanks. I hope not. Ask my daughters in 15 years.
So this is another big question that we ask everyone. Bae, B-A-E, or Bae. So that means, would you save Chloe or would you save Arcadia Bae?
Oh, that's a big one. I played the 5th? I don't know. That's such a hard question because there's... I honestly, what did you guys do?
I saved Chloe.
Yeah.
I did both. There's no right or wrong.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I did both, but then I guess I did choose to save Arcadia Bay because I felt that was meant to be, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, because if you don't save the Bay, you lose everyone. Like, you lose your mom and you lose anyone you've ever known. And
Right.
oh, man, I have goosebumps. I'll say both.
Yeah.
good answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you kind of already answered this one, but is there a character within the game that you relate to the most? If so, why?
Definitely the homeless lady. No, I mean, Joyce is definitely an extended version of myself, just in terms of, being a mom and wanting to do anything you can to provide your kids with the best that you can, and knowing that sometimes along the way you're going to fail.
Wow. Well, I definitely casted that right then.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Alright, so kind of speaking more about the dialogue of Joyce, Or what was your favorite line that Joyce said throughout the game? And we can kind of extend this with the homeless woman if you'd like to as well.
It's so silly, but I think the thing I loved most about the dialogue with her was the sweet moments, like talking about, do you want eggs and bacon or pancakes? Because that's just not something that you see in a lot of games. And I thought that was really sweet and kind of showed that, maternal nature of Joyce and the little ways that she shows that she cares. I loved that. It's kind of cheesy, but I loved it.
It was there's a lot of little stuff like that, and yeah, like the nice conversations that you have with Joyce in the diner at the house, Chloe's house. It's one of the I don't know, one of the little nuances to the game, one of the little je ne sais quois of it that
yeah
that makes it.
I agree, and I think that's part of why it struck a chord with so many people, is because it's relatable, and it's yes, it's a game, but it's you get immersed in it because these are conversations that you would actually have before you start time traveling.
Right.
It's very real, yeah.
Yeah.
So
sorry.
What
kind of
go ahead.
contrasting with the when you said that you like the sweet moments. Probably my favorite line is like when she says, "Chloe, for once, will you please shut up?"
Yeah, I'm tucking that one away. But I think on the flip side too, it was really hard to record the lines where she was defending David. Again, like here's this woman who has been through this horrible tragedy, and she's trying to keep it together for her daughter, and marries when maybe she shouldn't have, and marries out of more of a sense of finding stability for herself instead of finding stability for her daughter. Mm-hmm. When we had to record the lines where she defended David after he slapped Chloe, or however that scene played out, let alone the other scenes where it got heated and they were fighting, and then she turned around and would say, he's really a good man. That was really difficult to record because, I personally have been in a bad relationship before in my life, and I was the person that would make excuses for this individual. And looking back on it, God, what was I thinking? But I was 19 years old. I was not, I don't know, smart.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of strange to be whisked back to that time and making those mistakes and saying those things when, as an adult with a grown child, you should know better, you would think.
Right. Do you personally think that that David redeems himself at all? That you know of what he does, or do you think he's still kind of?
I think David tries to redeem himself, but I think he is. I think he's a deeply flawed character, and when you have the experiences that David does in terms of the war and PTSD and everything else, there's only so much that you can do without professional help, truly.
Right.
And a character like that who is prone to fits of rage and violence and abusive behavior doesn't often change quickly, if at all. So, I think he wants to do right, but I don't think he knows how to sustain it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So you kind of touched on that in the last question, but what were the inspirations for your characterization of Joyce? Kind of did you pull from?
Yeah. Like I said, I have a past and I've made mistakes in my past, and I have sadness in my life, and I've figured out ways to cope with my own sadness. But I think also being a parent, takes that to 11, because suddenly you don't just have to worry about yourself. You've got this little life that is dependent upon you for everything in the first few years. And then as they get older, less so, but you still have to be there as kind of the moral compass. And, hopefully, the sturdy anchor, where your kids can come back to when they've made a mistake or when they're excited about something or when they have something they want to share. You need to put aside your own petty BS and be there for your kid. And I think Joyce really tries so hard to be that. And in a lot of ways, I think she is, but she's also still human and has made her own mistakes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That was a very long-winded answer.
It was a good one.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully another one of your children will grow up to give you the hard time that Chloe gives Joyce.
Yeah.
But the blue hair is pretty odd. I wouldn't mind if they had blue hair. It's pretty awesome.
Wow. My mom would kill me if I had blue hair.
If that's the worst of it, you got no problems.
So for the final question, like the regular questions, are there any upcoming projects that you are in that you can talk about?
There's a bunch that I can't talk about. I did just do, released on this last Monday was Adrift for Oculus Rift, which is you wake up in space and you're in the space station and everyone around you is dead and you have to figure out what happened. Mm-hmm. And your suit is leaking oxygen. So I'm the playable character in that, and it's a beautiful game. And if you get the chance to play it in Oculus, oh my God, it's amazing. And then also I think on Thursday or Wednesday, there's a sequel that was 17 years in the making that just released called Baldur's Gate, The Siege of Dragonspear.
Oh, whoa. Yeah. Wow.
And I'm the Shining Lady in that one. And then also the Walking Dead Michonne series. I'm the big bad Norma.
Ooh.
Those are the ones I can talk about. But the others, we'll talk later.
Okay.
Okay.
For sure.
Definitely got to pick some of those up. All right. Now, probably time to move on to the fan questions. Thank you to everyone who submitted, but sorry that we weren't able to ask all of them. So let's get straight into it. So Lucas would like to know, what was more interesting for you to play as a character, Delilah from Firewatch or Joyce Price from Life is Strange?
Oh, wow. Thank you, Lucas, and thank you, everybody that submitted questions. That's like Sophie's choice for me. I mean, Delilah is a character that I played for 2 years. We recorded. And so I got to come back to her over and over and over again, like stepping into a nice, warm, fuzzy pair of slippers. And she is funny and crazy and witty and charming, and I love her. And then Joyce is sweet and caring and maternal and, all of these wonderful things. It's a really hard choice. So I'm not going to pick. There's your answer, Lucas. How do you feel about that?
So Katie wants to know, and you touched on this a bit, what coaching you received for some of the different scenes, like, for instance, throwing David out of the house or patching people up in the diner in episode 5.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Katie. There's not really much coaching on the spot, as it were, but I did voiceover classes for several years leading up to ever booking anything, and you kind of go through the different paces of what's the difference between video game voice acting or animated cartoon voice acting or commercial voice acting, and so learning how to use your voice as a tool for conveying these different emotions, obviously without the use of your body to help you explain things. And that came in really handy. I also worked with a really great director on Life is Strange named Phil Bach, sorry. And he was really great at setting the scene and making sure that I knew what was happening and what kind of response they wanted. And also the guys from Don't Nod, Luke and Michelle were on the phone patched through during my sessions. And so, they also had a really clear idea in their heads of what they wanted and how they wanted it to sound. And they really helped me a lot.
So this is kind of just throw this question in. Are you thinking that you're gonna stick to video game voiceover work, or are you trying to get into screen?
Well, I don't want to do on camera. I love voiceover because I'm not limited by what I look like. I'm not limited by how old I am. I can do a series like The Walking Dead and play 8 different characters, and hopefully no one knows. But if I were to try to do that on camera, I mean, unless you're in Orphan Black, it just doesn't work. So I love voiceover. I love getting to play all these different people and getting to do it with just the sound of my voice. I think it's fascinating to me, and I love it.
Wow.
That said, I do a lot of other stuff within voiceover. So I do a ton of commercial. I do a ton of narration. I narrated a documentary that was just nominated for an Academy Award. I do a ton of like celebrity sound-alikes for movie trailers and stuff like that when they're not available to come in and record. So I do a good chunk of video games, and I love it. But it's one part of this business, which is great.
Well, wow. You do an outstanding job at it. So
yeah, well, keep it up.
I really appreciate that. I get to do what I love every single day, and that drives me.
Wow. That's all I'm saying. So moving on, this question was kind of a little already answered, I guess you could say. But Taylor would like to know, what were your thoughts on Joyce and David as a couple?
Sure. And thank you, Taylor. Yeah, we did talk about this a little bit already, but there is a woman in my life that I draw a lot of comparison to for both Katya and Joyce in this situation, in that they are, this woman is one of the kindest women I know, and she's someone that's really a huge emotional touchstone in my life, and we're very close, and I talk to her regularly, but she is married to one of those guys, and he's not very forgiving on a lot of things. He has a certain attitude in his mind of how things are going to be, and that's it. Almost military-like in his commands of things, and she spends a lot of her time apologizing for him and explaining his behavior to people, and it's really hard. But for whatever reason, they work together as a couple, and she's happy, so I can't judge. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think Joyce and David are that way in a sense. He is damaged. She is obviously still dealing with William's death and how much that affected her. And she needed something to help her wake up in the morning and move on with her life. And if that's David, then so be it. Now, I have not had to go through the death of my husband and then raising kids on top of that. But if I did, I would like to think that I would take my kids' needs first. And I think for anybody who's lost a parent, having your surviving parent remarry is just going to be tough no matter what happens. So I'm just babbling at this point, but I think it would be, I don't know. I think they work for each other, but maybe not for everybody around them is the short answer.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we have arrived to the last of our questions, and this is from Chris. So it's kind of a situational kind of thing. If one of your kids turned out to be Chloe in real life, how do you think you would have dealt with her attitude, particularly towards if you had like David, as like a stepdad?
Well, thank you, Chris. Therapy. I don't know. That's the thing about kids, is that each one is so different, and the way that they're going to respond to something may not be what I would try to do. So I think it would take a lot of really understanding where they're coming from, and making sure that they know that I am there and I am listening, and I'm not just discounting their feelings, and trying to bridge the gap as much as possible. And therapy.
So that that is all the questions that we have for you. Let me ask this though. What do you think was the most rewarding about experience for you when working with Life is Strange?
You know, the funny thing is when we started recording, it was recording under a fake name, like so many games in the gaming industry do, just because it's notoriously secretive. And so I had no idea what I was recording. I was just recording a waitress in a diner. And then one day I went in and I asked, you know, what's the name of this game? Like, what's it releasing under? And they were like, oh, it's called Life is Strange. And I was like, all right. And then last February, I went up to the Game Developers Conference, GDC, in San Francisco for Firewatch, because we were doing a big press release thing for Firewatch. And I was in a breakout session about voiceover, and there were a bunch of directors in there and stuff, and they were talking about how effective good voiceover can be in games. And one of the directors said, you know, I'm obsessed with this game right now. It's called Life is Strange. And you know, the voice acting is terrific and the storyline is awesome and it's got a female protagonist and I love it. And I kind of perked up and I said, wait, I know that one. And so I was talking with him later and I said, you know, I think I'm in that game. I'm Joyce. And he was like, oh my God, that's so awesome. And that was kind of my first realization that, you know, this was not just another game that was just going to get released and kind of buried, but this was actually something that was going to have legs and people were going to be talking about. And then I started Googling around and seeing the reactions and seeing the fan art and seeing, you know, people just pouring their hearts out about this game and how much it affected them and it changed their lives. And my God, it's been so awesome to be a part of. I did an interview for Firewatch a couple of weeks ago, and the interviewer said, you know, I know we're talking about Firewatch, but I have to tell you that Life is Strange changed my life. You know, Life is Strange encouraged me to become a video game designer, and I've applied to schools, and I just got accepted, and I'm so excited, and I just wanted to say thanks. I mean, that doesn't happen with video games. You know, usually it's like, yeah, I killed some zombies, it was rad. But so to be a part of that, it's really humbling. Like I said, it's really outstanding.
Yeah, it's a very different kind of game.
Yeah, it's yeah. Well, I mean, what is it about it that struck you guys? I know you probably talked about this with your listeners, but I'd love to hear, like, you know, how it affected you each.
Who wants to start? Jamie, you want to start?
I'm trying to get the words together. I don't know. I found about it like in January last year, and I kind of just fell in love with it as soon as I opened up the menu. And it's been like an emotional roller coaster for me, but it's just, I don't know. It's like the way like everything was shot, the voiceover, the writing. I just fell in love with the game. Beautiful piece of media.
Mm-hmm. For me, it was, I like the like indie kind of style of it. It definitely stood out to me because it's, I mean, all the other games I played are just so unlike this one. And of course, the voice acting was phenomenal.
Of course. I mean, you have to say that.
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing. The plot and the fact that you can basically, you're in control of what happens. It's again, like kind of like a choose your own adventure kind of thing. Which is really cool. And I mean, even though there's not much like action in it like most video games, but it really, the dialogue is kind of where the action is, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. So that really struck with me.
That's awesome.
I think for me, I mean, like the first thing that wrote me in obviously was like, you know, the aesthetic of it. All that I love like cinematography and stuff like that. I'm not very well versed in it, so if you were to throw questions my way, I would freeze up. But
I'm like, I don't know. It was pretty. Stop talking.
Yeah.
But then just a lot of the stuff that the game tackles and the gravitas and the maturity that it tackles it with, I guess, and it kind of. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where this game kind of did change my life, and so I'm glad to be doing this podcast and, you know, getting to talk to incredible voice actors and like yourself, just the people that worked so hard, and you could tell it was just a labor of love from everybody, even all across the board. And so
Awesome. No, it's really cool to hear, because it is like, a lot of times when we go in to record games, it is just perfunctory. It's like, this is the line, say it, okay, next. But the passion, like you're saying, the passion that the guys from Don't Nod still have for it. I mean, I've Twitter stalked you a little bit before I agreed to accepting to come on your podcast, and just to make sure you're legit, which you are. Thank you. But I see that Luke and Michelle interact with you guys, and they're I think they've been on the podcast. Yeah.
Yeah.
Coming up.
Okay,
Yeah.
coming up, right? But I mean, you don't get that from a lot of the big AAA titles and stuff like that. But these guys, they're passionate about it. They love it. They really poured their hearts into it. And one of the other things that I love, and I'm going to grandstand here for a second because I can, but they wrote it as is, with a female character. And when they went to all these different studios, everyone was like, no, it has to be a guy. It has to be a guy. You have to change it to a guy. And they were like, no, we're not. It has to be a girl. Like, we wrote it. We want a strong female lead. This is how it's going to be. And they fought for it.
Wow.
And they won, which is so important in gaming, because, I mean, how what's the word I'm looking for? Women are not often represented well in a lot of games. And so to have these strong female characters, from Chloe to Max to Joyce to some extent, and the homeless lady. I
Can't forget about the homeless lady.
I mean, seriously. But it's so important, and I love that they fought for it, and I love that they continue to have the same passion for this game that they did when it wasn't released yet and nobody knew what it was.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is another really, really refreshing thing about the game, is that it does portray, a female character, and not just a female character. It's one that's Max gets to be flawed. She gets to be human.
Yeah.
And not,
she doesn't just have giant boobs.
Right. And she's not like this sexualized thing. So that was another like really refreshing thing about the game too. One last question. So are there any little secrets that you know about the homeless lady that maybe we don't?
I think originally she was going to have kind of a larger part to it, but I think the story took a life of its own, and she became kind of less important, which I was sad about. She was kind of fun, but but yeah. Other than that, she's living on the streets because she bought too many lottery tickets. Didn't pan out for her. That's all I got.
All right. Well, Cissy, we don't want to take any more of your time, but we thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it, and thank you for being passionate about this and talking with other people who are too. I mean, it's so important, especially with social media. It can be used for good and it can be used for evil, and I'm really glad that you guys are using it for good. So thank you.
Of course.
Thanks. So that's Cissy Jones. You know her as Joyce. Check out Firewatch if you haven't already. Check out Adrift, especially if you are purchasing VR. So again, thank you, Cissy, for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
Hi. So that was Cissy Jones, and wow, that was a blast. She is an awesome person, and it was great getting to talk to her about her roles as Joyce and the homeless lady. Real quick, lifeisstrangefans.com, which is our new home for our site, and we are friends with them. They recently had a competition, which was photography submission, and just want to honor the 5 winners real quick. 5th place won a $25 Amazon gift card, and that was user Jaro DADN. I don't know how you would even begin to say that,
The reputation on the podcast, just mispronounce everything.
Congratulations, JRODAD. And fourth place with a $50 Amazon gift card was Jesper. Third, the $100 gift card was Sammy Raw. Second place was, which won a Polaroid camera, the one that Max uses, was Frey Judogger. Yeah, we'll go with that. Frey Judogger. And the first place, the top winner, which was the winner of the competition, they won a Polaroid camera that was handcrafted to be exactly like Max's, was Stacy. So congratulations, Stacy. Congratulations.
All the runners up.
All the runners up. And you can check out all those images and more on lifeistrangefans.com or their Tumblr, arcadiabayfans.tumblr.com. They have another competition coming up soon that will have some really good prizes. So if you are intrigued, if your interests are piqued, then make sure to check out lifeistrangefans.com. And so let's talk about what we're doing next week.
Next week is another community guest. We have another cosplayer, and that is Eclair, who is also known as The Awakened on Twitter. It's going to be a lot of fun to talk to her about cosplaying things and stuff. She's mainly a Max cosplayer. I think she'll be premiering Max this year at PAX East. Hopefully.
Sweet.
Yeah, we'll be confirming that next Saturday with the interview with her, so stay tuned for that. So yeah, we're accepting questions for now.
Mm-hmm.
That's important. So get them sent in by Friday?
Friday, yes. We'll say, what is that? That is April 8th. So, yep, get those questions about April 8th. Yeah, and if you're a fan musician, cosplayer, fan artist, and we take a particular liking to your work and all that, don't be surprised if we contact you about possibly doing an episode with us or using your stuff. Real quick, Everyday Heroes is still a part of the show. We just have not had time with some of our recent guests, and we don't do Everyday Heroes when we do a community guest. But within our next couple episodes, we should see it back. And of course,
it'll definitely be back by the 23rd.
Yeah,
definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we'll definitely be doing Nathan fan art, and but yeah, thanks everybody that tuned in. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz if you haven't already. And
yeah, we'll see everybody next week.
Yeah, we love you. Bye.
Thank you.